Well, today, February 1st, is the first day of Black History Month. Throughout the month, KVUE News will bring you local stories honoring the achievements and highlighting the challenges facing Black Americans in Central Texas.
We begin today with a look back at the struggle by former slaves after the Civil War to find protection from mob violence in cities just like Austin. Here's KVUE's Bob Buckaloo.
The Civil War was over. Eventually, 3.5 million enslaved Black Americans would be free. Even though the Emancipation Proclamation that ended slavery in the Confederacy was issued several years before, it wasn't until June 19, 1865, Juneteenth, that word reached Texas when Union General Gordon Granger announced the order to the people of Galveston. As the news spread across Texas, 250,000 enslaved people suddenly faced the reality of having to figure out how to make a home, put food on the table, and create a better future for their families. But in the period after the Civil War, matters could not have been more difficult. Confederate states like Texas were determined that ex-slaves would neither be truly free nor equal. Jim Crow and black codes were the frameworks for a strict system of racial segregation and white supremacy. By 1870, blacks made up 30% of Texas' total population, but there had been so much violence against them, many would travel to bigger cities where federal troops could offer protection. And for some, that meant a trek to Austin. Many blacks in Central Texas would settle in what were known as freedmen's communities. At one time, Austin had 15 separate enclaves where Black Americans lived close together, establishing their own businesses, schools, and churches. There was Clarksville, established by Charles Clark in 1871, home to hundreds of freed slaves. And there was Wheatville, established by James Wheat in 1869. The first black newspaper west of the Mississippi was published there after the Civil War. It was called The Gold Dollar and was printed in this building on San Gabriel Street. But Austin City Hall in 1928 developed a plan that would force Black Americans out of their homes in Wheatville and Clarksville and others scattered around the city. To ensure that people would move, the city warned it would not provide paved roads or sewer lines there. They were to merge into a single neighborhood on the east side of town. Blacks were forced to settle in what city planners called the Negro District. Still, East 11th Street would become the focus of a thriving business community. From the 1940s on, East Austin developed into a center for Black-owned businesses, cultural life, and education, a community bonded together by neighborhood churches. Then, isolation in the 1950s, when construction began on an interstate highway that would run right through East Avenue, what was once an open and accessible boulevard that linked East and West Austin. For many, I-35 created a concrete barrier between the prosperity of downtown and the neighborhood on the other side of town. But there were positive changes too. By the 1950s, there was growing awareness on the part of politicians and the courts that Black Americans deserved the same opportunities as whites. With the passage of civil rights legislation and the Voting Rights Acts of the 1960s, Black participation in political life took on new urgency. The first Black American elected to public office in Austin occurred in 1968 when Wilhelmina Delco won a spot on the city's school board. In 1974, she was elected to represent Austin in the Texas legislature until she retired in 1995. In 1971, Austin elected its first Black city council member, Burl Hancock. Voter registration projects became a centerpiece of East Austin life in the 1980s. But even as early as the 1970s, Austin's Black population began leaving East Austin. Historian Lisa Bird has written that even before gentrification that forced many longtime families to move away, Black families started moving to suburbs and smaller communities surrounding Austin. For Black Americans in Austin, past and present, a long history of struggles and triumphs, with so many new chapters of that history yet to be written.